Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to the next in our series of webcasts that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series as we try to navigate our way through the pandemic and as we see green shoots emerging. And I'm delighted today to be hosting a very special webcast because this is about ATAS, the Association of Touring and Adventure Suppliers. So joining me on this video call is Brian Young, who is Managing Director at G Adventures, but also the new chairman of ATAS. We've also got Ulla Böhler, who is from Insight Vacations. She's the global CEO of Insight and also Luxury Gold. So welcome, Ulla. And finally, we've got Giles, Hawke, who is the Chief Executive at Cosmos and Global Schools. So welcome to you all. Now, it's been a difficult period, obviously, for everybody in travel. Clearly, for the touring and adventure sector, it's thrown up particular challenges because you're bringing people together, on on your own transport and going onto these destinations. But I know you've been working very, very hard in the last few weeks or so to come together and to really collaborate as a sector to find ways to really bring in new regulations on health and safety to make sure customers feel reassured and also that agents feel reassured to sell touring and adventure holidays. So if we start with you, Brian, perhaps you can just outline for us what kind of health and safety measures that you're looking to put in place.
I think a key important facet for all of the membership was, like a few weeks ago, is to talk about that as we start to come through this, there's clearly going to be a need from our passengers around safety and confidence in terms of what we're all doing individually, as well as what's going to be dictated by the various authorities in different destinations. So the key bit was to get together and just look at, okay, what's everybody doing? Because there's clearly some commonality in terms of the transportation that we use, cleanliness around hotels, distance, food, etc., etc., and then get awareness out to our travel agent partners to understand that, you know, this sector, there are a number of things that everybody's doing that's great work individually, but collectively, these are the sort of things that we're looking at. And that was really the premise a couple of weeks ago, is to make sure that, you know, as a group, we get that message out to our partners so they can understand the measures that we're taking, how seriously we take safety. Another aspect as well is some of the things that are different, I think, for this sector versus, say, maybe a package holiday, etc. And one of those is the fact that most of our tours have a dedicated tour guide or chief experience officer, we call them, that's with that group constantly. So it's that assurance of having that expert that's with a group throughout the whole of their stay. And I think that gets lost a little bit because when you think about traditional holidays nowadays, the reps that used to be, with a customer during that journey whilst in a hotel overseas, companies have pulled back quite significantly in terms of the amount of reps that are in resort. And I think, that for us is going to be an important facet, is that the customers know that they've got this expert that's on hand throughout the whole of their stay. So it's just a key bit for us was to make sure that, we get these messages out so that it helps our travel agents when they're talking to the customers.
Okay, so it's a two-pronged thing. It's setting up some new guidelines that you can hopefully, whilst you're doing your own thing, but you're all sort of adhering to the guidelines under ATAS, but also really maximising and promoting the fact that you've got these tour guides. And we'll come on to seeing if they're going to be required to do anything different. Let's come to you, Giles, then, in terms of these guidelines, because presumably you were working through what you wanted to do on your own tours. So can you sort of just outline some of the areas that you've been looking at? Brian slightly touched on it there in terms of the different countries you've got to go to, because of course everybody's going to have different requirements, I guess, and different rules and regulations. That's probably one of the difficulties.
Yeah, it is one of the challenges, and I think we will all make sure as touring companies that we're working to at least be as good as the guidelines of any country we go to. And I think all of us will try and be better than any guidelines that are in place. So all of us are looking at things around, how big will the groups be? Should we be having smaller groups to ensure adequate social distancing? What does the air conditioning look like in the coaches that we use? How do we work with the various excursions providers or the places that we go to make sure that they're safe. And I think, you know, to Brian's point around the tour director, tour guide, CEO, whatever we all call them, different things, you know, what the great thing is that they are doing quality control throughout the tour, day in, day out, all the time. So they're not, you know, they are there all the time, and they can feed back immediately if there's an issue. They can prevent something happening if there's an issue. They're seeing our hotels every night, all the different hotels. They're going to all the places that we're taking our customers. So they can manage all of that really closely. And so they are all getting, and I think we'll be doing the same across the board, in-depth additional training to help them make sure guests, the added sort of challenge of coronavirus, that is being addressed, along with all the other safety sort of work that they do, making sure that health and safety more generally is in place.
Okay, and Ulla, let's talk to you, because obviously I did an interview last week with Gavin from your business, and he was talking about putting on wellness directors on your tour, as well as doing extra training with your tour directors. So he was saying you then have the driver, the tour guide, and then you'd have this wellness director. So is that something that's pertinent to your company, or is that something that everybody in ATAS is going to have to start looking at?
So that is definitely a TTC initiative, and it comes directly from our chairman, Mrs. Stanley Tolman, who said, look, you know, we always put our guests at the heart of everything that we do, and we've spent, like everybody in our industry, we spent, you know, countless hours taking everything apart. We've looked at every single aspect of our trips, and we've put in place very detailed protocols of how we're going to operate going forward. And to ensure we've actually got the manpower to deliver on that, we have decided that across Inside Vacations, Luxury Goals, and Trafalgar, we'll be adding a dedicated wellbeing director on our trips to work alongside our travel directors, our traveling concierges, and our drivers to really make sure we take, you know, the well-being and safety protocols. We can absolutely dot all the I's and cross all the T's in that regard. And that is an innovation that comes directly from our chairman. We've announced this last week globally. The feedback from our partners and our guests has been overwhelmingly positive. So we are really excited about this. And also our internal teams and travel directors really felt reassured by having that extra pair of hands to help them deliver on all of those protocols. Yeah. But to pick up on Brian's point, I absolutely genuinely believe that as an industry, you know, we've got to speak with one voice. Yes, there may be little nuances. One brand does something slightly differently, but a lot of things will be consistent across all of our brands. And I think we're stronger together in that regard. And we've also worked very closely with the World Travel and Tourism Council, because they've really been industry leading in that regard, in bringing our industry together and in defining global protocols across not just tour operating, but also cruising and other parts of our industry. And we've been quite closely involved in sharing best practice and co-creating those protocols as well.
And has ATAS done that as well, Brian? Who have you spoken to, or which bodies have you looked to when you've been pulling together your guidelines for ATAS? Have you been sort of working in conjunction with like WTTC or the World Health Organization?
No, essentially everybody's working in their own lanes in terms of, you know, so to the point, you know, these guys working with WTTC, there's some things that we're doing at the moment which we're about to bring to the fray. So I think everybody at this minute in time is obviously clearly working on what's right for their businesses and what's right for their customers. The key thing for us is to make sure, though, that as we bring these things forward, that as an association, that we're placing, you know, that information out to agents, so they're really clear about, as a sector, who's doing what. So on the hub within, on the ATAS hub on the website, you'll see everybody's policies that have been put through, and at the same time links to everybody's policies. So all the agents can very clearly see, like, each company, all the aspects in terms of health and safety that they're putting in play. And I think that's the key bit in the first instance, is making sure that we're capturing what everybody's doing, because everyone has to focus in the first instance on what's right for their business and for their customers. And the key bit for us is to make sure that we're not disparate as a group, and actually we bring all of that information so that we can promote what everyone's doing, the great work they're doing, out into the agent fraternity, so that it's seen as, you know, all of the guys in terms of what they're doing from all the different facets, so that at least the agents are clear.
And presumably, back to what you said right at the start, that to then showcase touring as a good option in terms of reassuring a customer compared to perhaps when they might be doing something a little bit more independently? Or you referenced a package there, not all of them have as many reps as they did years ago, as where you're saying on one of your tours they're always going to be looked after. In terms of tour size, is that something that you're having to look at? You mentioned the social distancing. Giles, are you having to look at maybe, having half the number of people on a coach, or different hotels that you're having to stay in? What's happening with that?
Yeah, so one of the things we're working on at the moment, and we will have for 2020, which we're going to launch in the autumn, is smaller tour sizes, so smaller groups. And we're looking at some maximum numbers, which is different to our normal. So a normal coach, you probably get maybe 40 people on a full coach, maybe in Europe or North America. In Asia, our tours are normally smaller groups, and in Africa, smaller groups anyway. But we're looking in Europe and in America, where we would normally have, say, 40 people average or maximum on a coach, are doing some tours where we might have 20, 24 people maximum on the same size vehicle. So that will appeal to different people. It comes with a slightly different cost because that sort of space you're still paying for the tour director. All the fixed costs are still largely the same.
So it was it would be more expensive, is what you're saying?
It's likely to be a little bit more expensive because the costs are higher of doing that on a per person basis. It'll be a little bit more expensive, but I think part of it is making sure, and actually, by the time we have people touring in volumes, we're talking probably at the earliest it's going to be in the winter, and there's a possibility it might even be back end of the winter when there's real volumes going. By which time the world will have changed quite a lot. I mean, we're in the process of cancelling our tours through to the end of September, and our cruises that we have as well through to the end of September at the moment. So at the earliest we'll be taking anyone is October, by which time guidelines will probably be changing again. What people expect will be changing again. So there's a lot of work going on, I think, across all of us to prepare for, a return to service is probably based on today's knowledge and what is happening worldwide today. But with the pace of change, it's quite tough to keep up with that. So I think what a lot of people are doing, in addition to the sort of physical changes they're making, smaller tours, more space, checking deep cleansing coaches, whatever else, is looking at the actual policies that they have around cancellation, changing a booking, ability to move to another date if there's a flare up or if people don't feel like going. So we've got a peace of mind policy that we've got in place that if people a month out say, look, I don't want to travel, if they're booking with us at the moment, need to travel middle back end of next year, a month out they can move that booking to the following year. So I think what we're all doing is looking at other ways to sort of manage the situation, because it's possible by the time people travel next summer there could be a vaccine, there could well be other cures on the market, so it becomes a different issue. But I think what we need to do at the moment is make sure we're all doing everything that we've all talked about to give people reassurance in booking at the moment. But looking at bookings at the moment for 2021, we're not seeing any reticence for people to put their money forward and say, yeah, I want to book a holiday.
Great news. Okay, I want to come on to demand and what people are doing, but just briefly, Brian, you've also launched some sort of physical distancing tours as part of your program, haven't you?
Yeah, so we had two things. There's like Travel with Confidence, which is about, the fact that we obviously are a small group tour operator. So, 16 is the max, usually averages out about 12. Touting the benefit of our CEOs, and at the same time looking at transportation to all the points that, the guys have said there about how we make sure the vehicles are deep cleansed, hand sanitizer, etc. And the same, around hotels. We use small hotels pretty much that are owned by local community, so I think there's a lot of differences there in terms of how we talk about traveling with confidence around the size of the groups that we have. But we also have just literally launched Travel with Confidence Plus collection. So that's a collection of tours where the tour size is actually even smaller. So maximum on those tours is 12 people. At the same time as well, we use, in some areas, have used public transport. All of those tours got private transport. And at the same time, making sure as well that on those coaches, you'll get your own seat, so no one will be sat next to you. Likewise, there's an option for you to book your own room at 50% less than we would normally have put that in play, because we recognise people will want, maybe, their own rooms rather than sharing, and at the same time looked at more personal space, so twins or singles that have got ensuite bathrooms and such like. So it's a case of understand, like, here's our across the board in terms of how we want to look at confidence, and then at the same time, here's a collection of tours that just go that extra mile in terms of physical distancing.
Okay. I mean, of course, all these are things that you're doing for the bits you can control. I guess one of the things about touring is you're going to these fantastic destinations, you're going off the beaten track, these really enriching experiences. So, Ulla, how are you working with suppliers and the places of interest that you're taking guests to? Because presumably there are some that are going to comply and do everything you want them to, but maybe there are some that aren't going to. So how does that work? And how can you, within this ATAS, these new measures, can you assure people that it's not just your bit that's going to now be much more diligent, but where you're actually taking people to as well?
It's a great question, Lucy, and that is so important, because at the end of the day, none of us, we don't own the hotels, we don't own the restaurants that we work with. But of course, it is really down to each operator to choose and select the suppliers really carefully. And actually, I don't even want to call them suppliers. I like to call them partners. We've got so many long-standing relationships out there. And, and at the same time, partnership is important. But at the same time, if someone doesn't want to comply with our minimum standards, then we will be quite brutal, quite honestly, and we're not going to work with them. I mean, this is something I'm absolutely not prepared to compromise on. And our team of supplier relationship managers knows exactly what expectation is, what the mandate is. And if someone says, "Oh no, we're not going to do that," then we will find someone else. And even if there is a big attraction that doesn't adhere to our standards, or that we don't feel comfortable taking our guests to, we will absolutely change and find someone who is prepared to work according to our standards.
Okay, good for you.
And obviously, having the well-being director out there as well. Contracting is one thing, but then the next really important step is the operational delivery. Somebody can sign a contract, they absolutely wonderful, we'll do this, but then on the day it could be something different. So that is where the well-being director comes in, and he and she will absolutely make sure that whatever the agreement was is adhered to. If the contract says there is hand sanitizer at the entrance of the restaurant and the tables are 2 meters apart, they will be at the venue before the group gets there to make sure that is absolutely done.
Okay, great. All right. Now, Giles made the point there that he is not seeing any sort of dampening of demand for 2021. But I wondered what you all thought. Obviously we've got this announcement coming on Wednesday around air bridges, which we're not sure which destinations it will be. Of course, it's not been confirmed, but we've had a fairly good indication. So what does that mean for the touring sector? Do you see that you'll be able to get some sort of holidays away, people traveling this summer after all? I'll start with you, Giles, since you mentioned demand for 2021, but what about for 2020?
Well, I can tell you for a fact, we won't be taking any guests anywhere before October at the earliest.
So you've cancelled whatever.
We won't reinstate.
Okay.
No, we won't change anything. I think at the moment, I believe the situation, and we believe the situation is a little bit volatile to start making plans to say, oh, we cancelled your holiday, now we're going to run it again. I think there's still going to be some nervousness, particularly in the demographic maybe that we sell to age-wise. And one of the reasons they come on a tour is that sort of hand-holding and the comfort and being shown that they're quite adventurous people, but they want someone to look after them. So at the earliest we'll be touring is October, and we'll see how the situation develops before then. But I could envisage that some people might do that, but the other thing that we're sourcing from multiple markets. So we have Americans, Canadians, Kiwis, Australians, and Brits. And actually, you may be able to travel from the UK to a destination, but part of the pleasure of touring with us is the mixing with all these other nationalities, and they may not be able to. So I think we're going to play it cautious, play it safe, and make sure we're in a really good position when we are ready to take people touring again.
I mean, partly I asked that question, Giles, because I got a press release just shortly before coming on this call, again from Ulla's company, because you are launching this Best of Europe in your Trafalgar brand. which is going to be for September and October, some, you know, quickly turned around curated tours just where the air bridges are going to be. So I wanted to ask you about that, but also in the context of ATAS, when you're saying that you want this kind of consistent message to members, you know, you can have agents, you know, thinking, okay, well, you know, Cosmos doesn't think it's, you know, it's too volatile or whatever to put tours back on until October beyond, but then you've got others bringing some in. So I just wanted to ask about that, you know, in terms of this more immediate travel.
Well, I think every business has got to do what's right for them. What we think for us as a business in terms of logistics and making everything happen, and how we want to work with our guests and our travel agent partners is the way we want to work. And I think, you know, the ATAS approach to all this has got to be each individual operator will do what's right for them and their customers. And we all operate in different ways, run different types of holidays. So, you know, I'm not saying that it's unsafe to take someone on holiday before October. We have just decided that for our business, October is going to be the earliest we're going to be operating.
Okay, fair enough. Ulla, perhaps you would like to comment on that since it's your company.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, for Inside Luxury Gold, we're, you know, very evaluating at the moment. We're waiting until we know exactly where those air bridges are going to be, because as we all know, I mean, in the last 3 months, everything has been changing literally every minute of every hour of every day. And then we'll evaluate carefully. But I think one potential opportunity that we might look at is small private groups. You know, create your own travel bubble, take a group of 10 friends or 12 friends and go to one of the countries where there is an air bridge. But similar to Giles, you know, our customers for Inside Luxury Gold come from across the English-speaking world. So as he says, you know, just because the UK, you know, travellers can go somewhere doesn't mean the international travellers can go there as well. So I do think, you know, one of the opportunities will absolutely be small private groups.
Yeah. And Brian, for you, I know you know, you don't do exclusively long haul, but you do a lot of your tours are, you know, to far-flung destinations, really off the beaten track, quite exotic, you know, places. And we've got no indication yet of any air bridges opening up sort of long haul. So perhaps you can just talk to us about what you're planning. I guess
yeah.
A bit of a wait and see, but what are your plans for restarting?
So whilst we obviously do have lots of far-flung places, we also do have a comprehensive program in Europe, because we obviously have a big North American marketplace. So that gives us the ability to assess what's happening with air bridges and quarantine. I think there's no dispute come Wednesday, there's going to be some corridors opened up. Quarantine will be flattened in some respects, and I think that gives people confidence to travel. I think even TUI were reporting, you know, today or yesterday that, you know, since that guidance has come out from the government, they've seen a major uplift in terms of, you know, people wanting to book. I think it'll be the same for all of us guys. I think it's a case of, you know, to Giles's point, I think everyone's got to evaluate what's right for their business, their customers. You know, we, you know, benefit from a much younger demographic of customers that I think will travel quite quickly. You know, we have an 18 to 30 travel style. I think those guys will go. They'll be some of the first out of the blocks that will want to do adventure. And at the same time, I think we've got product certainly in Europe, for us to evaluate and say, okay, right, now's the right time to bring that product into play. I think in the same way that, you know, Ulla's saying the same for those guys. So I think you will find differences between, you know, ATAS members in terms of who's got what product, who's got the operation to support that product, and when they feel that their customer demographic has got the confidence in which to travel at that time. And now I think you'll see some of the operators going in September with some product. I think you'll see others go in October. But I certainly think now that we've got some, you know, clear sight of people being able to get away and travel, I think you will see, you know, something September, October and onwards for me.
Okay. And just in the same way as you're going to have these sort of health and safety and what each company or each ATAS member is doing on the website, would we also see on the website who's going when, or who's restarting and when they've got programs available? Is that something that would be?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's one of the things that for agents is to make sure that not only over here is like, here's all the health and safety, you know, the serious side of it in terms of what we're doing for customers, but at the same time, these are the operators that are bringing programs out, where to and when they're starting. So that
and things like the size of the groups and the prices.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Which would be really, really helpful. So just in terms of any other trends, interested to know, you're saying you've got people booking for further ahead, Giles. Is there, are you seeing any particular type of tour or any particular destination? Or maybe we'll go round, because obviously, as Brian points out, he's got a different demographic to perhaps the other two. But tell me what people are looking at, and is duration changing or anything like that?
Right, from our perspective, 2021, where we're looking really good is North America, so US and Canada. When I look at where we were at the same time last year for this current year, we're almost triple-digit percentage points ahead for next summer for North America and Canada. Europe, actually, we are flat versus last year, which I think, given what's going on in the world, we're quite happy with, to have the same bookings for Europe for next year as we had the same time last year for this year. Where we are seeing a little bit of demand, we are focusing, we've got about 30 UK and Ireland tours, and we're seeing some demand for UK and Ireland from Brits, which I think is great news. So we're focusing quite strongly on that with travel agents. Our belief is that people traveling a lot of them will want to stay relatively local, domestically, and Ireland is seen as by lots of Brits as sort of akin to domestic. So a lot of people will stay locally. We're doing some special deals for the winter for our escapes tours for UK and Ireland. So we're seeing growth there. Long haul exotic at the moment, we're a little bit behind, but I do think once people feel that that's sort of opening up, then I think we'll see that demand come back pretty quickly. But yeah, North America has been a really pleasant surprise. The last 3 weeks I've been looking at sales figures every day and actually smiled. I think it's the first time I smiled 3 weeks ago when we started seeing those bookings coming in.
Oh, I'm really pleased. I'm so glad. Honestly, it's lovely to have smiling faces. I've done a lot of these interviews when it's not been so positive, obviously. Ulla, what about you? What are you seeing in your sort of either search or booking figures?
Yeah. So what is quite interesting to see is those who are meant to travel this year, and I'm really, I'm very happy that most of our customers actually chose to postpone rather than cancel and push the trip to next year or some even to 2022. And a lot of them actually, they want to do the trip they originally chose. So if they went to, if they were going to go to Canada, they're now booked to go to Canada next year. So a lot of them actually want to stick with what they originally chose. And in terms of new bookings coming in, yes, we are seeing some green shoots there as well. And again, every time I see new bookings coming in from somewhere around the world, it puts a big smile on my face. But definitely, the tide is turning in that regard. I do believe for the UK, though, closer to home trips will become much more important. In the past, just like Giles was saying, most of our business went to North America. But I do think Europe will play a much bigger role, and actually also domestic trips. If I look at my global portfolio, we have a huge portfolio of UK and Ireland trips, and in the past, those would really be essentially for for the Americans and for the Australians. You would never ever have a British person book on one of our domestic trips. But I do believe that absolutely will be changing. And there are some lovely itineraries where, our Irish elegance trip, staying at Ashford Castle. I mean, why wouldn't you want to stay there, right? And I think also no flying holidays will be more important as well. And again, I think for the UK, that is a great opportunity. You can easily start in Amsterdam. You can start in Paris, jump on the Eurostar. And I think there are definitely some great opportunities for Europe.
Okay, all right. And Brian, what about the more adventurous side of things, slightly younger?
Yeah, it's some interesting things for us. Not only do we have global footprint, but we also have different age demographics in terms of the travel styles. So some of the things that we've seen that have been really interesting is duration. So we've seen duration in terms of the types of products that they're looking for is longer. And we think that stemmed from the fact that people actually are probably going to travel less in the next 12 months, but when they do, they're going to make it meaningful. So therefore they're going to stay longer in a destination, get properly into, an immersion of, either the communities or the destination itself. So I think they're going to spend more time, quality time in a destination rather than lots of in and out, city breaks, etc., etc. The other thing that's been really interesting for us to know is all of our active programs. So Mount Kilimanjaro, climbing base camp Everest, those products are really, really high up in terms of the search. And the reason why we believe that's the case is that everyone has something like that on a bucket list. And they never really, unless you're pushed into it like you were, Lucy, but, you know, they want to do these things. They sit on a list of like want to do at some point in time, and they eventually somewhere along the line either get into it because of friends and family like decide, right, that's it, we're doing. What we've seen, we believe, and reason why these products are so highly searched at the moment and getting booked is I think lockdown has made people really think about, you know, what life is for living. And these things that are on my list of things that I want to do, when I get out of lockdown, we're actually going to go and do that. And I look at that as like achievement-based experiences, because it's an experience, you're pushing yourself, and it's an achievement. The fact that, you know, you either make that milestone of getting to the top of Killy, etc. So they've been interesting facets for us. The other aspect is, you know, we're massive in Peru, always have been, market leader to that area. So Peru has come back quite strong for us. You know, there's activity that we've done with the trade that's worked really well in the last couple of weeks that I'm sure is helping that. And then Thailand, even though, you know, we're still waiting to understand that. So in Costa Rica being another area. So they're the sort of things that we're seeing, and it's really interesting. When we went into lockdown, we still were getting bookings at the back end of, you know, September, October, November. Then those slowed down as everyone started to realise that we're probably in this for a lot longer than we thought we were going to be. So then everything moved to 2021. And what we've seen recently is now bookings coming back in for the back end of this year. And throughout the period, which has been surprising for us, is that we've had net new bookings all the way through. So that's great news, because that showed us that, you know, irrespective of the current environment that's happening in the here and now, we still have a lot of people that want to get out and see the world, which is great.
I really hope you're not going to make me do another achievement-based tour, Brian.
You never know, Lucy, you never know.
I mean, one of the things I just wanted to, I'm conscious of time, but it is important because in the touring sector, you know, you do use a lot of local suppliers, you take people under the skin of a country, you know, and there's lots of people dependent on tourism that you guys all work with. And, you know, a lot of research has come out in this lockdown period that, you know, a bit like you're saying, Brian, people have used this time to reflect on the things they want to do. But I think people have used the time, and we're seeing research coming out where people really now are thinking about their travel more and how it needs to be meaningful or it needs to give back. And I wonder if that's another element that within the ATAS family, you might be sort of promoting to agents, that your style of holiday can allow people to travel with a bit more of a conscience and a bit more responsibility. I don't know who wants to take that.
Yeah, I can take that. I mean, I think you're right, Lucy. Look, all of us have a big part to play. You know, when we were talking at the very, very outset of this pandemic, when we were looking at, you know, gosh, what's the impact of this going to be? You know, one of the things that's important to us is that, you know, our footprint when we bring ATAS together is massive. And the impact that all of these companies, when you put them together on, you know, communities or businesses around the world, is huge. You know, it's not a small sector, touring and adventure. It's a big sector, has a big impact around the world. And what's really important, I think you're right, customers are going to be looking at, you know, I still want to go on holiday. I still want this kind of experience. But at the same time, I think what we're going to see is more customers questioning, what's the impact that I'm making by taking this holiday and the places that I go to and visit? And there's no denying that if it's done right, travel is a massive force for good. And I think that's where, you know, we, above some of the other sectors for sure, I think that's where we really can demonstrate that, you know what, we have a massive positive impact in communities, we have a massive impact to the economy of these places around the world. And most of those is where they need it the most. And therefore, the fact that we need to work with our agents to get this sector up and running as we come out of this, the benefit that it makes around the world is huge. And I think that's one of the key things that we can shout about, because I think we do it really well across all of the companies. And I think that's a key bit that as we come out of this, that I do think people want to be clear that the holidays they take are having a positive impact whilst on the ground.
Okay. Giles, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to add to, I think all of us prior to this pandemic we're focusing a lot on sustainability across all aspects of sustainability. And I was going around talking to all our tour directors globally at their conferences prior to the season starting, and about what we're doing as a business. And actually, when you start looking at touring, whether it be small coach touring, big coach touring, is a hugely sustainable way of taking people to places. It's relatively small groups, so the impact on local community is relatively little. The mode of transport actually is one of the most environmentally friendly modes of transport. So traveling by coach or bus is way more environmentally friendly than going by car. When you look at a continuum, you've got sort of walking, cycling, and then you've got coach travel. So it's a hugely environmentally friendly way. And then one of the other big aspects is about the tourist dollar that stays in the destination. And again, with touring holidays, you're staying in local hotels, you're using local excursions, you're using local tour directors, tour guides, local experts. So actually, our contribution, both economically and socially as a sector, is extremely positive. And I think we need to make more noise about the things that we're doing in all the places that we go, all the various social enterprises that we work with. And I think all the touring companies work with different social enterprises, but also about the money that goes into local pockets by us taking people there. I think that is an area we haven't focused on very much yet as ATAS, and probably should talk about more as one of the big benefits for those customers who want to, go somewhere with a purpose.
Okay. All right. I'm conscious of time. So just unless you want, sorry, Ulla, did you want to come in on that? Because I know you've got your Tread Right Foundation, but
Sure. Just very briefly, obviously, Lucy, our Tread Right Foundation, that's our not-for-profit across the TTC brands, 50 sustainable tourism projects. But it's not just our Tread Right Foundation. I mean, I think as guided holiday companies, so much of our money stays in the local businesses, and it's not just our projects we support, it's also using the local small family-run restaurants, using farm-to-table places, the local guides that we support, etc. And I really do think we can really make a difference, and our sector will play a really important role in the economic recovery. And so many of our small family-run suppliers throughout this pandemic, they've been sending little video messages that we've been able to use on social media for our guests, saying, hey, we're here in Seville, we're ready to welcome you whenever the world opens up again. And that just goes to show how important and what a major role we all play in bringing, in bringing the economic recovery to those communities. Also, in new bookings that we're getting, people do ask questions. Yes, so first of all, they want to know, am I going to be okay? Have you got the protocols in place? But also they want to know, do I support the local communities? I do think that is a shift, and it is becoming more and more important going forward.
Okay. All right. And then finally, Brian, maybe for you, just with regards to agents then who are either sort of signed up members of ATAS or could be or should be, you've all outlined what a great sector it is that will really help the recovery, and reassuring, and it's responsible and all these great things. But in terms of sort of training, it sounds like you are updating the website, and clearly we don't have any guidance yet on whether we can run sort of social gatherings and events, because you've got the ATAS conference coming up in the autumn. But just give us an idea of what agents, how they can work with ATAS to ensure that their knowledge of the sector generally, but obviously all these really specific things that are going to help us get out of this pandemic and to get traveling again. How will they improve their knowledge and be up to speed to really capitalize?
So I think the key thing is, first and foremost, keep an eye on the website, because it is getting updated. Keep a lookout for the newsletters that are coming out on a frequent basis. And then part of the work that's been going on in the background is the trade engagement group. So that's headed up by Janet, and Claire and Janet have been working in terms of putting people into the trade engagement group so that we can really start to understand what is it that we're trying to achieve as an association, and how's the best way in which we can make that impact meaningful for our agency partners. And at the same time, is being put together as we speak, the agent part to that as well, so that we get the feedback from the agents in terms of, this is what we need out of ATAS moving forward. This is what the type of training that's going to be beneficial for us. And at the same time, the type of collateral, information, how frequently, etc. So there's been a lot of work that's been going on in the last few weeks to really sort of shape that and actually put those into play so that we can really start to step up the amount of information, the training, and more importantly, the engagement for travel agents around the sector, because I think that's going to be key in terms of, you know, we do, you know, have some of the most diverse and most amazing products in this association, and it's making sure that we've got the right platform in which to get it out there and engage with agents so that they understand what everybody does, how they do it, and the amazing places in which we go. And to Giles's point and Ulla's point is also, you know, the impact that we can make whilst doing that. So I think there's still a lot to be done, but there's some really good work happening at the moment in which to make sure that we set ATAS up so that we're there providing, you know, the right things for our agents, but driven by our agents in terms of what is it that they need from us to make that as effective as it is possible.
Yeah, because obviously all of you can't get your sales teams out on the road at the minute, and I know you're all doing webinars and, you know, you're being fantastic, but I guess the ATAS central hub is then and sort of supplementary, isn't it, to everything that you guys are doing on the ground? And is that, you know, something that your guys are presumably, Giles, promoting to agents that they're speaking to?
Absolutely. I think we, and I think all of us in ATAS as tour operators should see ATAS as like an additional 1 or 2 salespeople in terms of the value that ATAS can bring for training and for helping people understand the whole sector and the range of what's there, as well as our individual brands. I see it as an extension of the sales team doing that sort of category job for us.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, there's more to come from ATAS. We know that. We don't know if we can hold the conference yet, but there'll be something, won't there, Brian? And we know
there certainly will be.
Whether it's a virtual or a hybrid or whatever event, but we will be doing that. But in the meantime, I think the message to all agents is just to keep looking at that at the site, because there's loads there, and this is a sector that's really, really working hard to get things back on track and to help agents to get their customers traveling. So thank you to Brian from G Adventures and the chairman of ATAS, to Giles from Cosmos, and to Ulla from Insight Vacations and Luxury Gold. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lucy, for having us.